Welcome to DJN TV and Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Now introducing the one and only Ben Stowe.
Yeah, baby! Yeah. So I've been working on getting some lyrics for a new theme song for the show, Ben, and I wanted to run those past you tonight before we got going. So
Okay.
I think, just to spice up the show, it'd be really cool to have a theme song.
Yeah, why not? I'm down.
Okay, so I'm going to run a few by.
The Austin Powers thing, maybe.
So the first one I came up with is the lyrics start, sunny day, sweeping the clouds away, on my way to where the air is sweet. Can you tell me how to get to Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe?
I like it. It is. It has a ring to it.
It has a ring. It has a ring. I know. These are completely original, but I have a couple more I wanted to run past you. So we want you.
How about a melody for it? Dun, 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 dun,
It could be. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves though, because then
we could,
we won't be objective.
Huh? All right. What do you got?
Got to hear the rest of them. So,
okay. All right.
Just the good old boys, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw. Been in trouble with the law since the day they was born.
I'm not feeling that.
Okay, you're not feeling it. Okay. I just stick with me now. I've been working hard on these. I've been really working hard on these. So,
Mama tried.
So no one told you life was going to be this way. Your job's a joke. You're broke. Your love life is DOA.
That sounds like me. That's pretty much it.
So it's like you're always stuck in second gear when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or maybe your year. And then we, Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe.
That would be good if we had it. If we called it Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe and Friends.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so that's a definite.
I'm just thinking about the Facebook group that I don't know, for some reason that song just kind of speaks
like that. I
speaks
see it.
Friends. It speaks Friends to me. I don't know.
It just seems it's coincidence completely. My next one.
Okay.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't it be nice, or wouldn't you like to get away with Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe?
Huh. You came up with all these today. That's really good.
I'm not done yet.
Oh, wow.
I have one more. So then
we can quarter in you.
We can vote on our top five or our top ones. The next one is, I'm too sexy for my. Oh, maybe not.
I mean, it's just too obvious, though. That one's just too,
maybe that one, but we probably should explain that.
It's just not subtle at all. I mean, right? John?
Yeah. I worked on these all day to make sure we had a good variety of options. So I'll keep working on it.
I'm kind of feeling like, can you tell me how to get to Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe? Again, I feel like there's a melody that would work with that.
I would think something.
It's coming to me.
It's coming to me out there. There's got to be. Well, we'll have to see. So, hey, thank you guys for joining us tonight out on Facebook and out on YouTube. We've got folks already jumping into the chat room there. Bill and Peter and Bright Night Entertainment, thank you guys for being with. Bright, that was actually one of them I was going to do, but I figured no one would get that one. Greatest American Hero. Believe it or not, I can't.
So a guy that I toured with, and we're still really good friends. He was a production manager for a group I toured with. He told me that was on, and a couple of years ago, I think it was on. It was one of the streaming services, and so I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that from back in the day. And so I turned it on, and I started watching it. And I even watched a few at my friend Charles' place. I think I've talked about him on previous shows. He's another sound guy, great sound guy, good friend. So, we watched a couple, and I'm like, I just can't. I can't. I think I made it through 6 episodes or something, and then I came home. I came off the road. Remember when we used to go out on the road?
Yeah, I remember.
And I came home and I was like, honey, let's watch this. And my wife and that was the end of it. Like, she just looked at me like, are you serious? I'm like, nah, I'm there with you. I just can't. I can't anymore. So yeah, I don't know. That one's
I didn't know how many people would get, so I just didn't do that one.
That's a non-starter. It's too bad. It's just so cheesy. I mean, it's just what they were doing for television effects in the 70s, but it was just so cheesy.
That was the time though, and we thought it was so cool, and it was so because the next day we would go and we would talk about what happened last night on MASH, Happy Days, whatever the show happens to be.
Well, no, MASH, but of course MASH didn't rely on effects.
No.
I mean, it had, great writing, tremendous cast, and I'm a MASH fan. I've watched every episode more than once, and I've actually been to the MASH filming site in Malibu Creek State Park. Nearly broke my leg the day before NAMM, which of course, thank goodness there's no walking involved at NAMM.
Yeah, exactly. It's just right there.
I'm walking around with my knee as the size of a cantaloupe because it was after the fire had gone through and the park was open again, but bridges were washed out, and it was in bad shape. And I decided I would basically, I'm an Eagle Scout. I can do this, right? Fjord a stream, anyway. It was worth it, though. It was totally worth it. Went to the filming site, posted some pictures on my Facebook. This was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I remember seeing the pictures. Yeah, it's been.
Not sure I'm going to go back. Not sure I want to risk trying to finish off that leg because I was pretty banged up.
It's tough when you get old.
Yeah, well, and then it must have been 5-6 miles that I walked after I busted up the leg. Ooh. Which was probably a good thing, actually. It probably was good that I did walk on it as much as I did, and then I had NAMM. Otherwise, it would have gotten really stiff. I really smacked it good.
Yeah, but just before NAMM, it's a good thing that there wasn't much walking.
The day before. The day before.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Good thing.
So MASH. No, I could watch MASH again. I could sit down and watch it. I could binge watch MASH. Absolutely. There's some of those that just I think are timeless.
And that's what I was just going to say. You watch some of those and they're funny today. And there might be some humor that's a little bit, it wouldn't be as accepted today, but there's some shows that age well. And that is one of them. Some shows just don't age well at all.
No, that's true. That's really true.
And that's always been one of those things when my father's watching some of the old TV shows and you're watching and it's like, oh, wow, that would never make it today. The show would be gone.
Hey, oh boy, yeah.
Yeah, that would. So let's talk questions. If you guys have got some gear questions or anything you'd like to throw at us tonight, this is kind of an open night for questions and things. And actually, Ben, I want to kind of start with what we were talking about off camera. You were talking about upgrading an old computer and putting in a new hard drive and such. People obviously have those old computers that are out of warranty, and they get to that point where it's like, the machine works. It's just that generally the performance is down, and a SSD can help that tremendously. Are there some tips or things before a person dives into that you could recommend on how to make that a successful venture?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think number one is do your homework. Know what you're getting into. Certainly in particular, we were talking about iMacs. Some of them were more intuitive than others. Some of them had magnetic screens that you could just pull out with suction cups. Some of the older ones, they had RAM slots on the bottom, that sort of thing. The newer ones obviously are a lot thinner, and you have to cut adhesive to get into them. And I would say, number one, know what you're getting into. Number two, give yourself time. Have a kind of a prepared workspace. Understand what you're going to need for tools, and so that you're not caught stranded kind of halfway through with this computer torn apart. Mm-hmm. That would just be my advice to maybe somebody who's a novice who hasn't done this before. You don't really know what you're getting into, and all of a sudden you realize you're a little bit over your head. But really, honestly, they're not that bad. Once you get in, proceed with caution. Be very careful not to damage cables and things. There's antenna cables and things on the side. There's, of course, the display cables that attach to it. And if you proceed with caution and patience, my 2 kids have been helping me with them, and we just kind of went through that process. We're going to tackle a couple more tomorrow, just kind of keep moving these machines that are still serviceable down the line. And in fact, the machine that I'm on right now is really quite old. Mm-hmm. So if you take care of them and do what you can, they'll serve you pretty well.
Static electricity is something that when you're working on computers, they talk a lot about that. How can a person not have problems or unexpected surprises with static electricity?
I actually that went through my mind and I omitted it. So I'm glad you brought that back. That's 2 things I was going to mention. One, if you can feel it in your fingers, it's fatal to a circuit board. That's adequate voltage to destroy a circuit board. Just a little zap, like when you walk across the carpet and you touch your sibling, which I never did.
Mm-hmm. No.
I was never fascinated by electricity because I sent my siblings into orbit after walking across a shag rug in the 70s. But but hypothetically,
Yeah, somebody might have though.
I saw it. I saw it on one of those sitcoms that was completely.
It was
tasteless.
a TikTok video that we saw as a kid. It was great.
Yeah, I would never do that. Yeah, static electricity can be. You don't even necessarily have to have felt the ESD, as they call it, electrostatic discharge, to have damaged something. So just be really careful. And again, that comes with doing your homework. Know what you can touch and what you shouldn't touch. As a rule, be very careful touching components. I have an anti-static mat, and I also have, a collection. I must have a dozen of anti-static wrist straps, which will attach to your wrist and then clamp to the chassis or to the mat or, whatever. And that allows for any static buildup to be discharged through a low resistance conductor, i.e. the strap. And thus you really shouldn't have any potential built up that can be discharged into the device. I'm not going to say it's not necessary, because I don't want somebody to go blow something up and say, well, Ben said it wasn't necessary, but it isn't. If you're conscientious and you're cautious, you probably don't have to go to that level. I find that they actually get in the way a little bit. However, I wear them many times, and that's why I have a huge collection of anti-static straps, is because they are something that will protect your equipment from you at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beware of static, big time.
Excellent. As long as we're talking computers, Tyler just asked a question about Apple's announcement this week of the new processors. Have you had a chance to look into that a little bit to know what they're going to be doing?
Not really beneath the, just the skin, so to speak. What they're talking about is the ARM processors, which is a technology they license and manufacture those chips for themselves, and they manufacture them for the iOS devices. And there's a couple real advantages for that. One, they don't necessarily be tied to Intel's update cycle to update their own inventory. They have a little bit more control over that. Two, they think they can achieve some real performance and energy improvements. They've expressed that kind of through the back channels. It sounds like they're not real happy with what's happening with Intel. And three, it's going to be a lot easier to make software that will work across iOS devices and macOS devices. It really begins to kind of stitch that together. And I think that's something that the Apple community's really wanted to see is more continuity from iOS to macOS. There's some disadvantages though too. If we remember the Rosetta days when we were coming from the PowerPC chips to the to the Intel chips, and right now the Intel chips are still more powerful. So I think we're going to see somewhat of a staggered rollout, and they're going to try to bridge that gap. Certainly not everyone is going to abandon their Intel processors. So you have to have software that works on both, and you have to have something like Rosetta Stone. And, also you have to have developers. You have to have people developing things for the new ARM platform. So, it was generally met with kind of an eye roll amongst most of my friends that use Mac, and we use a lot of them in the office. They kind of went, oh, here we go again. And I said, no, I think it's a good thing. I think at the end, if you look at the vision, if you look at the horizon, I think it's a good thing. I support the move.
Mm-hmm.
So it's put me in a bit of a dilemma, though, because I've been thinking about updating my MacBook Pro, and it will be probably 2 or 3 years before we see an ARM processor in a MacBook Pro, I think. So I'm kind of like, boy, that's longer than I want to wait. I've been waiting already.
See, and that was one of the things I had picked one of those up before we went to Las Vegas for the convention, and it did all the video processing. Mm-hmm. I've had MacBook Pros off, forever.
Mm-hmm.
My disappointment with the 16-inch is how hot they get.
Mm-hmm.
When they're working, it's speed wise can outdo any other computer. And I've got a garbage can. It can edit video faster than anything else we have. But it produces heat. And when they were talking during the Apple event about, the performance and heat type of, how those went. And it's like, yeah, I can see that on that 16-inch. So when you say it's going to be 2 or 3 years, it's like during the session when they were talking, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, and I just bought this machine, and gosh, if I could get one that would be as fast but cooler, it's warm enough where you really can't leave it on your lap in working.
Well, that's another thing they were talking about. I feel very fortunate that I just had kind of been personally curious about it because obviously I have no idea what the questions for tonight are. I even tried to get somebody and you said, well, let's kind of see how it goes. So I'm kind of thinking, I'm like, wow, thank goodness I am personally interested in this topic and have read a lot about it. I can speak somewhat intelligently. But yeah, they're talking about fanless technology too, that potentially these devices can be fanless, which obviously is an energy savings, but also that these devices could potentially run cooler as what they've done with iOS. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see. And, I'm on board. Here's where I'm at. Apple has my support until they lose it. They've done some things that were just terrible and abysmal, and every company has. But by and large, if you look, I think, I'm really pretty pleased with the body of work for what Apple has done.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think this is something they're going to do just, willy nilly. And I think they're going to put some thought into this, and I feel good about what they're going to come out with.
So the processor changes, they move to more efficient. Let's kind of parallel that to the amplifier industry, because I would think we can almost come with some similar parallelisms with creating smaller, lighter, less or more efficient, less heat.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that. We've talked about that in past shows with different architectures, A, B, AB. There's A, there's B, and then there's AB. Even, class H and then class D, and there's other classes too that are not as common. But as they've gotten filters to remove some of the oscillations and artifacts with Class D, they've gotten very, very good. They've gotten very small, very light, very efficient, meaning that what you take from the wall, most of that actually goes to the loudspeaker. And of course, the other side of that coin is processing. That we have FIR processing, finite impulse response processing now inside amplifiers and powered speakers, that we wouldn't have dreamed possible 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this past weekend I actually took the Evolve 30s out and I performed a show with Evolve 30s. You mentioned 10 years ago you wouldn't have thought.
Can I help you?
I was playing Minecraft in survival, and it was only a few minutes I had just begun the world. I found a canyon, and I had found a bunch of diamond, and then I had suffocated in gravel.
So are you asking all my viewers for help with that, or just?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, nice to see you. Good luck next time. And we're going to get back to our show.
So we can't play Minecraft?
That's what I heard. Minecraft, gravel,
problems. Oh,
yep.
Sadness.
We all have crises.
We have our struggles. We have our struggles in life. In Minecraft, getting buried in gravel. Yeah.
I hate it when that happens.
That's usually a Wednesday thing anyway. So, so amplifiers. The Evolve 30s. That 10 years ago, there would have been any speaker of that size or that ilk probably wouldn't have been able to do what that speaker can do today because of that digital, the processing and such that they have inside there. It was just, I was really, really surprised. I didn't expect it to be able to do, sound as big and cover the area as well as it did.
Well, and certainly when you factor in the digital mixer characteristics that are built into the Evolve 30M as well. And something that is really surprising and pleasant is if you look at models where there is a powered and a passive version, ELX, EKX, that sort of thing, ZLX, the weight difference between the passive and the powered is only a few pounds. Mm-hmm. These amplifiers weigh very little now.
And that's all using the Class D type amplification.
In most cases, yeah.
So what would not be using Class D amplification these days? I was actually looking the other day, and it's like everything that I was seeing was this, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I can look
at powered
at
speakers. Almost everything is Class D. Some of the rack amplifiers are still Class H. Some are even Class AB still. But there's just more efficient supply circuitry. There's two topologies here. One is we're talking about the actual amplifier output topology, and then we're also talking about the power supply topology. Used to be they had toroidal power supplies, big old chunks of iron. I feel like we did a show 4 or 5 years ago and we took some of these apart. So viewers, feel free to browse the archives. Just watch them all like MASH, binge watch it, whatever. you'll find that some of our jokes didn't age well either, not because they were inappropriate, just because they were never funny to begin with.
Yeah, I was going to say they weren't. Actually, some of them might have gotten better with age.
I feel like that's possible. Yeah.
Or at least maybe we'll get a sympathy laugh after they've been with us for a number of years, and they'll
Right,
be
they're like, you know what? After 200 episodes, I'm just going to laugh.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
just
just
give them
gonna-
a sympathy laugh.
yeah,
but there's also switch mode power supplies, and sometimes those are called digital power supplies. But there's circuitry that doesn't require a giant chunk of copper and iron like a toroidal power supply. It used to be those really couldn't keep up with recharging the power rails quite as fast. And so we often saw big toroids on low frequency stuff. And like anything, technologies bridge that gap where you can have very lightweight amplifiers with very lightweight switching power supplies that can supply tremendous amounts of current. So it just, it really depends. I think that's our theme, right?
pretty much, yeah. Did you know?
Maybe we should just have the ends jingle for our theme song.
Day is a good question here about powered speakers. How come all of them don't have built-in fans? Because the amplifiers all produce heat.
Because they don't need them. That's about the simplest, honest answer is, and if you think the manufacturers just forgot, they didn't. You and I have both been to several manufacturers' engineering facilities.
Mm-hmm.
They know. And, these things can run at tremendous levels of heat. Now, there are circumstances. I know we've had customers, who have powered speakers in the sun in Arizona. Well, yeah, that thing's gotten very hot. And that's not to say that everything is flawless. But I guess the point is that under most circumstances, even somewhat extreme ones, most of these convection-cooled amplifiers run reliably.
Do you think as technology continues to evolve, are we going to get to fewer cooled speakers? Are we going to get to more that are sealed completely and using a convection system?
Yeah, probably. I think there's advantages to that. They're not always completely sealed. Sometimes they use vents. Sometimes they use the air movement of the loudspeaker to create a little bit of air movement in there as opposed to a fan.
Okay.
Some of them use like stepper fans, like the ETX, basically, uses robotic motors for the fans, very precision controlled fan speeds. But I think so, because fans have a couple issues. One is noise, even though it's very, very low, they do make noise, and any noise is something, we would like to avoid if possible. That's why you basically never see a fan-powered studio monitor or fan-powered studio monitor amp, really. I mean, almost all that is convection because they want it super quiet.
Sure.
The other is if we start talking about IP65, inclement weather, outdoor, that sort of thing, if you have air movement through the device, you can also have moisture movement through the device. So I think there's some potential reasons why you might say, no, I do want to kind of seal this thing up, as you said, and prevent anything from getting in, whether that's dust or rain or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That said, though, it's memorable to me. I was doing a very large outdoor festival. We had something like 10 or 15,000 people in a lot in front of us, basically. I shouldn't say it's very large, but it's big enough, I'll tell you that. And they fired off streamers the first night and confetti, and we were there for like 2 weeks. It was just 2 week long deal, kind of night after night of crazy debauchery. And the first night they fired off metallic streamers and confetti, and I have racks and racks of amplifiers that are pulling a lot of air through there because we're pushing a lot of power. Yeah, and I went and grabbed the effects guy, basically by his collar, and I dragged him over, to the stage left side where the amp racks were, and I said, look at that. Look at all that confetti that is plastered up against my intake grills on my amplifiers. And he's like, yeah, I don't get it. I said, okay, if that's paper, that's annoying, and I can deal with it. I said, if it's metal, it's fatal. I said, that metallic streamer goes inside that amplifier, and the amount of current and power in that amp rack, I said, we could have a fire. I mean, that amp rack could literally burst into flames.
Yeah.
So, he and I had a little chat, and there was, and I was nice, but I just needed him to understand. I'm like, look, this is a no-go, man. We need no more metallic confetti, please. So we didn't. They ran paper the rest of the week, and I have great pictures of paper confetti everywhere. Everywhere. But that gives you an idea how much air is moving through that amp. That this confetti is just quite literally plastered on the front of it. It's sucked it right to the grill.
Yeah, and if you go and try to take it off during a show, the metal stuff, if you happen to tip one of them and it gets sucked in,
exactly,
it was just better to
pins and needles.
Wait till the end of the show and then take it off.
What's cool though is those amplifiers, and we're beginning to see more of this precipitate even into the low cost stuff. But remotely, I can sit and watch. I can, and in this instance, I was monitoring the temperature of the amplifiers because it's a summer night outside, and now my grill has confetti all over it. So I was monitoring the temperature of the amplifier to see if it was a problem, and it wasn't. I still had tons and tons of temperature room. But it was interesting where I could begin to see at that point, do I make the decision to pull the confetti off and risk it? Because otherwise it's going to burn up, but at least you kind of know where you're at. So you don't have to make these decisions uninformed. Yeah,
for sure. And that could be really, really ugly quickly. You mentioned IP rating, and this is a question I wanted to bring up because I'm right in the midst of doing a lot of the Weekend Handyman channel videos, and we had a lawnmower that came in, and one of the big things that they were talking about is this lawnmower is IP rated. I've not had any of the battery gear that has come in talk about IP rating, and I thought that was interesting. But they're promoting it as IP rating X4 instead of, typically we've seen IP 550, whatever, 57, 56, 40, whatever, however that would go. When they're saying it's IP rated X4, what are they saying with that?
So everything is basically IP rated on some level, because what that's telling us, it stands for ingress protection, which, as the name implies, ingress is getting in, right? Egress is going out. So it's just telling us what can get in. And the first number deals with solids, and the second number deals with liquids. That's my memory anyway. And I don't know what X is. I really don't. I guess I've never seen that. I've always seen the number thing. So I'd have to look, but there is an IP scale where we could look and see at least what the 4 means, assuming that follows the same IP rating scheme that I've seen.
Yeah, it's that I had never seen that also. And it's like, well, that's odd.
X, I'm guessing on this, viewers, but X may mean it has no ingress protection on that scale. I don't know that would, I don't know.
Yeah, it's either one end or the other is what my thought was. And being that they brought it up, I would almost think that it is completely sealed, but there's a number for that, an actual true number when you're talking IP rating.
Yeah. So, like IP 20 or something, would be a common thing, where it essentially has no resistance to liquids, but it has some basic restriction to solids. Like my amplifier would probably be IP 20. I don't know. They don't even talk about what the IP rating is. They just don't assume.
Yeah. No one's going to get it wet.
Where it'll block confetti from going in, but dust or liquids, they're going to go through it with no problem. So I don't know. That's interesting. X4, you said. I'm
going to be talking to this is a skill battery powered mower that we were working with, and I've got to talk to the product rec tomorrow. But I thought that was the darndest thing. I've not seen that before. That
might not be a rating, could be a marketing thing. It's IPX4. It's ingress protected, times 4 or something. I don't know. You have to let me know. I'm going to learn something.
I'll make sure we'll talk about that again. Speaking of marketing things, Bluetooth technology. People have been talking a lot about that, and I've had some things coming across my desk talking about Bluetooth transmission able to go 600 feet. Have you heard anything along that lines in your that have come across your desk that Bluetooth can go beyond the 30 feet or whatever it is my headset can do sometimes?
I haven't read a published spec that says that, but I have to be honest, I really don't spend a lot of time looking at Bluetooth. It's not something that I feel is likely to become that technology, but I could be wrong. I will say though that when we did the test with the EasyLink chevet lights, we had them several hundred feet, and they were still working. Now that was outdoors, and it was a very, Bluetooth uses 2.4 technology, so it's in that same bandwidth as Wi-Fi and a million other things. And as we know with RF, it's always signal to noise ratio. That's always going to dictate your range. But I know factually that Bluetooth can go longer than 30 feet. 600 seems like a really long ways.
Yeah,
particularly for such a short wavelength like that. So I'd have to do some reading. If you could find the Bluetooth standard or the Bluetooth technology, that would be worth the read. I bet there's got to be some caveats to that, though.
And it's coming across from, not from our main manufacturers in the audio industry. It's coming in from some of these little smaller upstarts, which starts to me, when you mentioned marketing,
is a little more suspect, maybe.
Yeah.
But that now we've seen 6 gigahertz opened up for Wi-Fi, and there could be emerging. Now 6 gigahertz is a higher frequency, so it's even a shorter wavelength yet. And that's one of the reasons that 600 is so attractive to 5G, is that 600 is a much lower wavelength, and while it doesn't have the data transmission speeds that a higher one does, it will go much further distances. It will travel through human bodies. It will travel through walls. That sort of thing, much better than Wi-Fi or anything that's in the 2.4 or 5 or 6 gigahertz. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what they're cooking up with this newer. Again, it could be just total bunk.
There's always that part of a person thinking.
But I always keep an open mind. But at the same time, you gotta you make an outlandish claim like that, you gotta believe it. In fact, I had a guy today on the phone, a customer who was complimenting me. He said, "You don't just read from pamphlets. You really want to get your hands dirty, and you don't take anybody's claims kind of on faith." So and somebody goes, it's 600 feet. I go, I don't know.
Let's try that out.
I would prefer that things outperform what I say they'll do and not underperform. So.
Let's see. Dave found some information that IPX4 is resistant to water splashes, and X5 is sustained water spray. So it must be just, in essence, the particle. They must be just X-naying the particle and just talking the water side of it. So,
well, I've got another one here, courtesy of my friend Neil McKinney, who he said IPX is different than IP.
Okay.
IPX4 is a sweat proof, which explains why I don't know anything about it. Sweat is not something that I spend a lot of time worrying about.
Oh, I was going to say that you don't sweat.
He says upon further reading, the X means none. There's IPX4 and IP5X. Anyway, so
the X there is no rating at that. So really, it's saying, don't let a crow pee on it; it will die. That's what it's saying.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of sweat resistance any of my stuff has.
We're gonna have to. Well, I'll have to ask and see what their interpretation.
I look like a guy that sweats.
I was gonna say, when you said you didn't know anything about that, I was thinking, he doesn't sweat. He's one of those guys who just glistens.
Right.
Glistens.
Well, I think I do sweat plenty. I actually, oh gosh, if I can find this would just be hilarious. It's a picture from a year or two ago where was doing a outdoor show, and it was a combination of sweat and rain. You really can't tell what's what. And it was just a miserable combination of the two, where, you can just imagine what it's like when you're, I think we were doing an outdoor show on on a street. Basically, they shut off the entire street, and that was like the big annual festival there or whatever. And so that, and you can tell by the building in the background, it's a small rural Minnesota town. So this is like the big deal. They closed off 3 city blocks, and we had, a touring act come in, and, kind of a medium name, but the biggest name that town's ever. I remember the first year we did it, and, we rolled in with semis, plural. And the guy like had a heart attack. He's like, "What are you going to do with that?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I said, "You understand, you booked a Grammy winner, right?" You know, and he's like, "Well,
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah." I said, and he said something about, "Well, I didn't know you had a semi." I said, "Well, we have two, actually." So, I don't know if you knew what you're getting into when you booked XYZ Grammy winner, but that's the way. Anyway,
This is the way it rolls. Yeah.
imagine what this street is like. This, in the middle of July, this street, after it's rained, it's now like a giant greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hot and muggy and miserable. So there we go.
The drenched rat look.
Yes.
And you don't
As I
look
said
happy.
to my friend, this is my happy face.
Yeah, that does not look happy. I've seen that. I don't think there's enough ice cream that could make you smile at that moment.
Yeah, and you can't tell what's sweat and what's rain. It's a pretty good mix.
You're pretty wet in that. Let's see. Robin,
great feeling, by the way. I'm sorry. I just have to tell you this. I just have to share this with all my friends that are watching because, some of you are getting back to work and some of you are doing shows, and that's awesome. And some of us are still waiting. And I was scrolling through a news feed and I saw a link to an article or something. And I just was kind of scrolling and I saw this festival and I'm like, oh, that's a nice looking rig. And then I looked again, I'm like, that's my rig. That's a good feeling. I want to get back to it. I want to get back to my rig.
Get back out there. Let's continue on. Robin had a question about some of the popular streaming devices. I know that you've had a lot of folks out there who jumped into streaming. They're using things. You're getting some feedback and such from folks. What have been some successful, some popular, some streaming devices that people are still looking at getting into it that they should probably be looking at?
I think the device that you're going to stream with depends on the device that you're going to stream through. Meaning, if it's a computer, if it's a phone, what type of connectivity is on it. I feel really good about the cable that we made. Mm-hmm. We rushed that thing through development. Obviously, we made some tweaks and then we sent out replacements. I feel good about what we did, and I feel better about what we did the second time around even. But hundreds of those things are out there, and I know people are using them, and I think it's great. There's other devices, the iRig 2, we sell a bazillion of those. They have a lot of awareness, and those work fine for those TRRS devices. If you're going into something that has Lightning or USB-C, I would go with an audio interface. And those are getting really hard to come by. The back order is huge. Some of the things that we talked about months ago on the show has manifested itself, where the factory closures have become a real problem, mm-hmm. combined with the incredible surge in demand for products that don't typically have that level of demand. So there's still some that are in stock. I know we have some of the Personas ones in stock. We have some really good deals on some of the Tascam interfaces in stock. We have some of the podcasting packs with mics and headphones in stock, and those all work really well. And the IXR, for example, and a couple others, the i2 work on iOS and USB. But again, it really depends on the platform that you're using. The Roland DJ 707M will allow you to stream directly through it. And not supposed to tell you this, but by the time they see the show, so will have you, and they can only yell at me. So there's going to be a promo coming up. End of this week, there's going to be some cool upgrades and promos available on that. So drop us a line and get in on that. But I think that probably covers it, really. The various ways of getting the sound into the device you're going to stream out from.
And then, of course, you guys have been doing things not only with the streaming tools, but then the accessories with the green screen pieces and some lighting.
Yeah, those came in today, so that's good. Those came in, and we shipped out the big batch of those. So anybody that still wants one of those, we have, I think, a dozen maybe left is all.
Oh, wow.
But there are a few still left, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's been a big thing for sure. People don't want, interruptions.
Yeah. Well, there's almost a point there where that would be worse, because you'd have your little green screen behind you and all of a sudden somebody appears.
Yeah, I had a friend, and this is on the thread if you want to go see who it is. I'm not going to call him out, but I think he wanted to be called out. I think he enjoyed it a little bit, and I love his sense of humor. I love that I could be this mean to him because it was in humor. But he said, well, that's all fine and well for the background. He said, but what can you do to make me look better? And I said, that's easy. Put the screen in front of you.
Yeah, I'm sure
Piece of cake.
you can drop something in, that'll look awesome.
Yeah, just stand behind it. You'll be fine.
Day asked a question about when you're doing an outdoor concert and you've got rain. I mean, what do you guys do on if it's one of these? Because I've seen concerts that have just gone ahead even though there's rain coming down. How do you guys handle that without having major issues?
Well, it will certainly improve your level of faith.
Are you a praying man? You will be after your.
You will be. First outdoor show you do, you will be. As they say, there's no atheists in foxholes. Number one, all joking aside here, number one is prepare. Understand your plan. We look at weather reports. We try to not get caught by surprise by these things. We have a weather trigger alert chart that tells us when certain things happen, what we do. Everybody knows that in advance. Everybody understands their role. And we're not really that worried about rain, because rain's a good thing, right? Rain makes corn makes whiskey, rain's a good thing. Thunder and lightning.
Another song for my list.
Why not? We can do country songs for me. I don't care. Whatever. Lightning is a problem, a big problem. Rain doesn't kill anybody. Rain can be bad for your gear if you're not prepared for it. But if you're doing outdoor shows, you should have some level of understanding of, what's going to happen with your gear in the rain. It's going to get wet. If you do an outdoor show, it's going to get wet. So you best be prepared for that. And unless we're talking about, flooding, I remember one outdoor festival we did where they had trenched in new electric to the festival site and the ground was still a little bit soft. And I was literally watching rivers of mud flow away from the footing that's supporting the stage roof. And you start thinking that's not good.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah. So, and that wasn't my roof, but my stuff's hanging from it. And I don't want anybody to get hurt. Yeah, so that's one of those things where you hop on the radio and you say, can we get somebody to come look at this? They did, and everything determined it was okay, but, try to prevent problems before they happen. So rain, I don't really worry about, but lightning, wind, because wind can blow those roofs over, and we saw that obviously cause death at the Indiana State Fair, the Sugar Land concert, and unfortunately several other examples. So understand what those limitations are and understand what your plan is. And I love listening to my team work on the radio because they're so conscientious. They're talking to each other and they're looking out for each other and they're looking out for the people around them. And they're saying, hey, we got lightning at 12 miles, guys. Let's be on alert. Radar indicates it's coming this way. 8 miles is our safety threshold. So at that point, then we have to move our plan into action. And so we're not waiting for that trigger to happen. We're anticipating it. We're saying, it's very likely that in the next, 20 minutes, we're going to have a problem here. And that gives us a chance to prepare and get everybody safe, including our crew and the guests and the gear, which is last consideration. On the trigger chart, for example, tornado, you're not worried about the gear. You just forget it. There's insurance for that, and if you don't have insurance, it's too late to get it now. So just get out of Dodge, right?
Can't get your insurance. Get out.
Yeah, and our weather chart is modeled after the ESA, and they have several ideas. And again, it has to be adapted specifically to what you're doing, and to the specifics of your roof and the soft goods and that sort of thing that are on it. I think I just found it here. So I can't find the. There we go.
There it is.
And we've adapted ours to include others. If they have vendors, food vendors, we're not qualified to do this, so we can only make recommendations. But we'll tell the festival, say, hey, we're going to take care of business in our end, but you really ought to know where these people are going to go. Mm-hmm. You know, so we button down the stage and we all go to a safety place. What happens to everybody in the audience? You know, they're your responsibility.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and have those conversations again months before the festival, not the day of. And then, you know, say, what about all your food vendors? What about these people in you know, in these tents out here and that sort of thing? What's going to happen to them? Help them think about those things. And this talks about exactly the things we've talked about a week or two ago with COVID-19. If we can prevent tragedy within our industry, first of all, there's a moral need for that. And second of all, there's a pragmatic one. If we regulate ourselves well, we won't be regulated by outside entities.
Very much so. And I think that's something we're going to be possibly running into here in the next few months, but that's for another discussion for another day.
Well, you know, I mean, we've got an opportunity in front of us. I think the same can be said about the general public, though. You know, when you kind of look at what's happening, and there's a reason seatbelts are a law. There's a reason there's speed limits, and you know, and as we learned from the Katie cast, apparently I'm not a very good driver, but listen, I just want, if you haven't seen the Katie cast with Kat and Katie, don't bother because it really wasn't worth watching. They didn't really talk about anything important or meaningful. But if you did watch it, you know that they talked about the way I drive in Los Angeles. Okay, there's 8 lanes for a reason. All right, it's if you're in the left lane, you had best be going triple digits. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm in the left lane. I'm just saying, yes. They said, well, he drives really different in Bemidji than LA. Yeah, I do. You're right. Bemidji has our biggest road has 2 lanes. LA's got, you know, 8 lanes.
Yeah, well, that's a lot more. We have a
don't bother to watch that episode. Honestly, it was I didn't
late last week. I think is when it was. If I remember.
I think it was Monday, but you know, it doesn't matter when it was because you're not going to watch it.
Oh, it might have been yesterday. Yeah, that might have been yesterday. So
it absolutely nothing of interest in there.
Nothing to see here. Keep moving along. Thank you.
It's really just, you know, sort of a filler piece, you know. Nothing.
I don't know. The night that Kat came in and filled in for you, and we did the, you know, I thought it was an interesting show. I'm just gonna say. We don't have
I will
much.
say that in the episode with Kat and Katie, who of course I adore both of them, and it was really fun to watch that. You won't enjoy it, but don't, like I said, but I enjoyed watching it. It was really nice to see that Katie asked Kat, tell us 2 things we don't know about Ben, because Kat's been at NLFX for like 17 or 18 years.
Yeah,
and she really sidestepped the question well. I was really impressed.
she's doing well, we're not going to go there.
In fact, Katie and I got a good laugh about that later. So yeah, I said, yeah, Kat did a nice job at dodging that one.
Yeah, she's working on her political speech. Okay, we got a couple minutes left, and we got the best question. Bright Night Entertainment came up with the best question of the night, asking you, Ben, to name 5 vehicles that Luke Skywalker piloted.
Well, of course, he used to, bullseye womp rats in his T-16. He had a land speeder. He piloted an X-wing. Let's see, that's 3. I don't think he ever piloted a Y-wing. We never saw him. And I don't think he ever piloted the Falcon. I know he shot cannons in the Falcon, but I don't think he ever piloted the Falcon. 5 vehicles.
5 vehicles, yeah.
Yeah.
Without going into the books, it would be tough. Into the books, it becomes much easier, of course.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. I guess I was thinking the questions for the movies. So
yeah,
I guess I'm only gonna get 3. A T-16, the X-wing.
Did he fly the
land speeder?
Did he fly the Falcon to? Did they fly that in when they went to rescue Han?
No, because he was already in.
That's right. He came in.
Yeah, he was already on Tatooine with the droids, and Lando flew it back at the end of Empire. Yeah,
that's a tough one.
I don't know. I guess you got me.
Yeah.
Take my Star Wars card away.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not coming up with anything yet short of going into the books, because I believe in one of the books he a tie. He pilots a tie in one of the books, and in another book he does fly the Falcon.
Okay,
But that's
there you go.
in
That might
the
be your five,
books.
yeah.
But that's in the books, which obviously is no longer part of the official Star Wars world now. So there's some of us who are
Right,
still
it's not canon.
bitter about that. I'm just going to say it.
And did his question say in the movies, or did I just
Did not.
did I
Did
just
not.
add those words in my head?
He did not say specifically in the movie, just that.
Okay. Then I just added those words in my head.
Yeah,
so.
and again, that's why I would have taken it also, is because, again, because they're no longer canon. It's just, some, creepy guy from central Minnesota who has 200 books that are in a bookcase above his bed. That kind of stuff.
Speaking of Star Wars, did you see that the missile shooting Boba Fett action figure is going for $225,000 on eBay right now?
The one that came out like way back when?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they Kenner didn't actually make those. They stopped those, and then they shipped ones where the missile was glued in, and there were only a handful that the missile actually shot. Yeah, it was. At last I looked, it was like 225,000. So obviously I'm not getting it.
Yeah. No, because you're busy playing Minecraft.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, so
I can give you 225,000 reasons why I'm not getting it.
exactly. Get back to that. Put that SSD back in the computer. Well, Ben, thanks so much for kind of hanging out and chatting tonight. And thank you guys for being with us. We're going to take a switch over here and get Brian and Jay up here in about 10 minutes at the top of the hour. And we will see you again then next week on Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for watching.